I noticed in all these pictures.
Welcome to Love and Live Abundantly. I'm Alana.
I'm Bill. Do you want to love more effectively?
Do you want to live fully and love more courageously?
We talk about what all that means.
And how you can achieve it.
Join
Join
us.
us.
Yeah, that's right. We're back. I'm Bill, and this is Alana, and we're coming back after two successive weeks of talking about depression and suicide. And we thought this is a topic that needs just a little bit of finishing up and a little more specificity. So that's why we're back. That's what we're going to deal with. I would like to remind you too that, I mean, I don't think we say this often enough and probably ought to say it all the time, but you need to contact us if you have specific questions or if you have an example or a case or if you just want to make a comment. We really would like to hear from folks. So give us a buzz or a tingle or a click or whatever it is that it's called. It tells you what a techie I am. You better save me now, Alana.
Yes, you could comment below or you can send us an email at hello@truthbetold.world. We would really love to hear from you. And discuss anything that you'd like us to discuss or answer any questions that you may have. We'd love for you to be more a part of this.
So that address was what?
hello@truthbetold.world.
Hello at truth be told. That's all one word.
Yeah.
Dot
World.
world. Yeah, see that one always threw me because I'm so used to CC or com or org or net or any of the rest of those. That's really kind of cool. Okay, thank you. Uh,
Yes,
and and and
were
and don't.
available.
I'm
None
sorry.
of none of those were available, and so they gave me an option of world, and I thought, hey, well, that's pretty cool because
Well,
I'd really love to reach the world.
if the world cares, let's hope.
The world cares. They may not know it yet, but they
Okay. Uh, and in reviewing what we talked about last time, we really did get a little more specific, and there were more actual concrete things you can do if there's somebody you care about who's feeling depressed or even suicidal. Um, we didn't cover what you can do if it's happening to you, and you're together enough to be able to rest your own resources and take your own chances and engage in some new behavior. We didn't do that, but we also, I think there were other things that both Alana and I might share with you about actual specific behaviors that you can do. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, get out there and help them, boy. But it's another thing to say, and here's a way that some people have done that. And here's a thing that you might pick up and do. Here's a thing you might try, and it can't hurt. Because I think no matter how much we tell people that you can't trigger somebody committing suicide, I think they're afraid to try things because they're afraid it might make it worse. And giving them examples of specific things that they might try that won't make it worse, I think does them a service. And that's why we came back to this subject this week, or at least why I want us to. And Alana said, okay, let's do it.
care.
Okay. Um, well, I guess since we've introduced that subject, I think I better start with a thing that you might do. When I last time I said make a date, and I mean more than that. I mean meet me right now at such and such a place, or where are you? I'll come there, and I will sit down with you and let's have a cup of coffee. I've always been a strong proponent after my grandmother drilled it into my head of a warm beverage being good between friends. And so I always make sure we meet somewhere where there are warm beverages available. Now, my wife would suggest that's because I'm a caffeine addict. Maybe, I don't, but that's why we do it. But the other thing is that by saying I'll meet you at a place where there are people and where there are things happening, where that's that kind of humanity milling, uh, that is the good place for them to be because by the time they call you, there's some very lonely place, and I don't want them to be there right now. The other thing is to make a date, um, and uh, and not only do I ask them, can we meet right now or can we meet first thing in the morning? But also, let's have dinner on Friday or let's go on Wednesday. Why don't you meet me at the such and such meeting because it's a good thing for people who are feeling as depressed as you. Or there is this crisis center down on 4th Street. Why don't you and I go down there? In our town, we have such a place, and I know that some places don't, but we do, and it's 24-hour, and it's a club, and there's always people hanging out there. 3 in the morning, there are people hanging out there because when they're feeling sad or blue or lonely, they've learned that that's a place where they can go and sit down with other people and play pinochle or have a cup of coffee or just talk about stuff. And if they probably don't know that, being depressed, they probably don't know that. So why don't you just meet up with them and go down there and play pinochle with them or take them to a coffee shop or go somewhere with them. God forbid, maybe you take them to church, someplace where life is valued or recognized or happening.
Well, and I think even that one-on-one human connection with somebody, right? It'll give them a different sense of what's going on because here you are in front of them. You took the time to meet with them because you care about them.
Mm,
Um, could give them a different reflection. I'm like, okay, hey, you know, they felt like something was wrong and they took the time to meet me right away. I think that is important. I think human connection it's so and so very important. I mean that's I don't know. I took the assist training, and that was, you know, you need to make connection with people. You need to, ask them questions and see how they're doing, and you know, let them know that you care about them. And so, going to the coffee shop, making it a point to meet with them right now, it's very important. I don't know who runs that coffee shop that you're talking about that you can go to at 3 a.m., but I feel like that's a great idea. I wish they were all over as well, right? If you're feeling anxious or depressed or, whatever it is for you, you can just go in there and not be alone.
mhm.
Because I,
It's
I feel
run
like,
it's run entirely on donations, and there's AA in the area, um, the Mental Health Association in the area, and two of the churches, the Methodist ministry and the Catholic Church, all pitch in and keep it running. So, and they supply all the volunteers and donations at meetings and in the churches help to cover the overhead. But it's not a fancy place. It's just it's the place.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be fancy.
No.
It's people connecting, and as long as they have a common area to do that in, that's the most important thing. So that people don't feel alone. I feel like when we're alone and we're in that state of mind, we go down that spiral. And it being in a place like that or being with somebody that you can connect with, they help lift you out of that spiral,
Mm.
right? And you don't keep going further and further, um, in that spiral. and it's connection. It's connecting with people.
Well,
And so,
one of the big symptoms of depression is sleeplessness or sleep disturbances, because sometimes you sleep way too much. But I've had people tell me, man, I'm lying there at 3 in the morning, and I've got this obsessive loop going in my head about ain't it awful and on the terrible things that are happening in my life, and nobody likes me, and there's this whole despair thing going on. And so what I do is when I have a family member who did that all the time. And his worst time was at 3 in the morning and lying there, and he couldn't call anybody. Why? Because it was 3 in the morning. But I had a contract with him. I said, if you lie awake at night and you don't call me at 3 in the morning, I'm going to come over and bop you on the head. I would rather be awake with you at 3 in the morning than have you lie there by yourself. And what he discovered was after he talked to me for 20 minutes, he had to hang up because he went to sleep. Uh, he got himself into this loop. So make a contract. Call me at 3 in the morning. I am available, and be insistent about that. And then the next morning, if I see him, or 2 days later, or 3 days later, if I see him, I make sure I say, have you been lying awake at 3 in the morning without calling me? I mean, would know what the symptoms are. Sleeping too much or sleeping not at all, feeling blue, walking around with your head down. One of the things that will help you to notice is the deep sigh. You've known people who are depressed, and one of the things that consciously or unconsciously, you look at them and you say they're depressed. And one of the ways you know that is because they do this thing often. I mean, you talk about that is the poor soul sigh. That is that deep and goes right to their belly. It's such a deep sigh. And the interesting thing about that deep sigh is that it goes along with general body. Your body is bent over, the shoulders are rolled over and curled, and the head is down, and that compresses the lungs, and so they don't get enough oxygen. So what happens is that they get a little bit of oxygen, and they go, well, people don't sigh like that in my presence. Not my friends, not my enemies, not my clients, even strangers on a train. Why so deep a sigh? That's my question every time. And they'll say, oh, I didn't realize I was doing it, or they'll deny that they did, or they'll say it's nothing. But I'm that PPA that I talked about last time, that I'm that persistent pain. And I'm going to keep after them until I find out what's troubling them, because that sigh is not a lung condition. That almost always says somebody is feeling despair, depression, aggravation, but something not so pretty good. So if you hear that, again, be a PPA. Now, another thing that you alluded to this the first session, 3 sessions ago, 2 sessions ago, and that is get them moving, physically moving. We talk about them being low in oxygen and all the rest of that. But also, it's really hard to commit suicide when somebody's strolling with you down the sidewalk. And there is that, but get moving. That whole brain chemistry that's got you all depressed gets interfered with regular aerobic exercise. So get moving. And I will do that. I'll get over there and I'll find them still in their jammies at 3 in the afternoon, and the PPA kicks in, and that's when they get their clothes on, and we're going for a walk. Where are we going? Well, there's a coffee shop about 3 miles from here, and I'm really thirsty let's go. Yeah. Another thing, believe it or not, you know, you want people to think that you're the crazy one. You run into someone and you think that they're being real depressed right now, and that they're really worrisome to you, and it's hard to get them motivated to do anything. Be a PPA and take them dancing. You got a double whammy with dancing. You got the music that we already know interferes with depression. But you also get that movement that we've already talked about interferes with depression. It is tough to hang on to depression in the middle of a boogie.
Well, and that's what I feel too. It's, one, you're getting them up and they're able to move their body, right? So they're kind of not in that stagnant place anymore. And you know what? I'll even dance like a fool to make you smile, right? And to give you some hope, and then and grab you to come and dance with me, right? I mean, it gives you, I feel like it gives people a different perspective. It kind of like shakes this off of you,
Mm.
right?
So
It gives
is that an idea for our next session?
what?
Will you dance and boogie like a fool for us? Good.
Well, as long as you join me.
Oh no, well, I guess we won't do that.
So
That
yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to we talked about how music, lifts our spirit, and so you add dancing in there, moving your body too, just kind of gets you out of that a little bit of funk.
yeah, I've noticed. I know you've noticed it in yourself and in your family members but when somebody's depressed, if you say, "How's it going?" you get a list sometimes. You either get the micro answer, which is fine, which is fouled up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, or you get a long list of kind of aggravations and, well, I got pain in my back and it's unrelenting and I've just lost my job and I they canceled my TV program and my dog has got a limp and there's this list. Some of them are really important things and some of them are just important because I'm so depressed that anything is important right now. But there's a whole long list of these terrible things. And one of the things that I insist that people do is don't tell it. I don't want to hear that. I don't hear that, and you don't want to hear that, and you've been saying that to yourself too much. Tell me what you need to be grateful for, and they will look at you as though you have had a closed head injury, but you got to stay with them. Give me one thing that you can be grateful for today, even if it's just me being a pain in your butt. Give me one thing to be grateful for. And before you go to sleep tonight, you can't go to sleep unless you come up with 5 things that you're grateful for. And what are you grateful for? And what is the thing that made your life worth living up to this point? Make a list. Let's go. Let's get started. And that whole reframing thing is very difficult. And for those of us who live with folks who are depressed, we find ourselves trying to do that when what we try to do is jolly them out of their depression. Well, why? You shouldn't be depressed. This is why you shouldn't be depressed. Really? That never worked for me. I don't know if it's ever worked for you, but none of the people I've ever treated it worked for. Hey, you shouldn't be depressed. Hey, life's good. You got money, you got a pretty wife, you got a nice car. That's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
No.
No, and I feel like too, if the person is in despair or emotional and crying, going back to the breathing, taking deep breaths,
Oh,
and calming your nervous system down, and so having them take a few deep breaths to just relax, and it's not bigger than them. It's something that they can work through, but just to go
mhm.
back to their breathing, is very helpful too, because it helps them calm down, right? And and possibly in that having a new perspective.
And get centered. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that a friend of mine, close friend of mine, told me was that he went through a long period of depression. And this is where we sit around at breakfast. There's a group of old fogies. I was going to say another not so nice word. We sit around once a week at breakfast in a local diner, and he was talking about being really depressed, and we're all sitting around there saying, "Well, we've been there and we've done that. What got you out of it?" Because it had happened sometime between that moment and the week before when we sat around. And he said, well, my friend Joe came over and said that he needed help with installing a generator. A generator. Now, none of the rest of us around the table know anything about generators. He did. And what ended up happening was that he was profoundly depressed. He really was. He wasn't getting out of jammies. He was just sitting around watching reruns of 50s sitcoms, and that depression right there, boy. And he gets this call and says, can you help me? And it's an interesting thing that knowing that you are of value to someone else can help you to understand that you should be of value to yourself. It's little things like that. I have I have friends that I know that if I was feeling depressed, they would drag my butt over there to help them with something, even if it was to make scones or biscuits or to um, do a prime rib or whatever. That being useful, being of use to another, uh, gets in the way of any kind of irrational belief that you're totally useless and you should end it. So, if you want a concrete thing to say to somebody who's feeling depressed, say, you know what, I need a hand. Can you give me a hand in the morning? I got to do this thing, and I was hoping that you would help me with it. I know you don't know anything about it, but I cannot do it alone.
I love that. I
Yeah,
think because then it too, people like to give, right? And then they feel like they're valuable.
there you
And
go.
they even say that, oh, do you feel lost? Then go volunteer,
There you go.
right?
Mhm.
Feeling out of sorts, go volunteer. You'll get clarity then, because when you focus on giving, then you're not focused on yourself anymore. It's about giving and how you can help people, or what you can do or not do to to help people out. And there's value in that for us.
It it's hard to continue feeling useless if you're useful to somebody else. Yeah. And I like the idea of volunteering at soup kitchens, and that we have a really nice mission here that takes care of people, and they're really quite good. They teach us that government doesn't do as well certain of things that motivated caring people do better. And they take care of folks. And one of the ways that they do that is, I'll bet you half of the volunteers who work there on a routine basis do so for their own benefit, caring for others because it's good for me. And I know that there are people who were cared for that way themselves and now are returning the favor, that somehow paying back reduces that. And there are opportunities at food banks and churches and boys clubs and places all over the world where, if my friend is feeling depressed, out of sorts, or even suicidal, I'm going to drag his butt over there. And as you say, it's tough being depressed while you're ladling soup.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah.
And it's tough to feel like you've got it bad when you're confronted with people whose spirits are still up and they clearly have it worse. Yeah, and don't tell me. I mean, folks listening to this will say, "Well, I don't think we have any such thing in our area." Yeah, you do. It's good preventive medicine if you go find out what they are. Because one of these days somebody's going to call you and they're going to be in the kind of shape that we're talking about. Yeah. The other thing is, you might think about it is, here's a real good concrete piece of uh, good news. You just got an email address. Send us a question. You find yourself in that kind of a circumstance, you're worried about somebody that you love, send us an email. Call somebody like us in your area. Call a minister, call a counselor, call a crisis center. You get on the phone. And last piece of advice before I shut up. And I can't stress, don't keep the secret. Get as big a crowd as you can. Um, we have a social group, my wife and I. We call ourselves the Dirty Monkeys, and we travel together, and there are 22 of us. And yes, we travel together and we have fun together and we laugh and we do stupid stuff. But one of the things that has evolved over the years is if one of us is hurting, even a little bit, boy, you talk about a mobilization. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. We're there on phones and internet and physically in person. And my grandmother will tell you that there is tremendous healing benefit to a warm casserole. So we cook for people, we go, we sit in there. Um, an example of a couple of years ago, I had an operation that didn't go well. And I won't go into all the circumstances, but I was in between operations, an operation to fix what went wrong with the first operation. And you can imagine, I was not feeling real chipper. I was depressed. And that annoying bunch of folks were all over me on the telephone, on Zoom calls. They're ringing the doorbell. And of course, if you come and knock on my door, I can't ignore you because my dog will go crazy. So I had to answer, and they were bringing me meals, and they were sitting down and eating pizza with me, and asking me how I felt and what could they do, and how much they loved me, and that community that was there all the time. If I'd gotten much more depressed, it wouldn't have taken much for me to forget that I had that community available to me. I didn't even have to reach out to them. Once the word got around among them, well, if I have people in my life that I care about and they don't have that kind of community, yeah, they do. They're just waiting for a phone call. People want to help, but they're afraid to reach out because they don't want to be intrusive. Well, I'm going to help them to be intrusive. Don't keep the secret. Get out there and get her done, as they used to say.
Well, and what about, people who don't have that, have the 12 monkeys, so dirty monkeys.
Dirty monkeys.
Not everybody has that. I don't have, 22 people in my life that will come and do all of that for me. I probably, I mean, I know that I have people,
Yeah,
right?
you
However,
do.
yeah, I have people. However, there are some people out there who don't have a lot of people,
That's
or
right. And part of the reason they don't have people is because they're depressed and have been isolating themselves.
yes. And
So we're going
so,
to make them get people.
and so by making you get people, that's doing, there's free groups out there of things that are of interest to you. I feel like anything from apple picking to zebra stripes, I don't know, I went from A to Z, and everything in between. But the point being is that, you know you're not alone, and
No,
sometimes we need to lean in a little bit more and differently so that we create that around us. We create those people and have that support around us. And it could even be, for example, at an AA meeting, right? You
mhm.
you go to an AA meeting and you connect with people there, and and then you have your support system. And that's any group really. It's one of the things that I love, about AA. Is that community, right? Because I think that's the core of it. Really, is that you don't feel alone, and you're not alone in your troubles. And so there are all types of those groups around, and and reach out if you don't know where to start, again, you can send us an email. Google it. You know, Google different support groups in your area. You know, look up for things of interest and make a choice. You don't have to, you know, stay stuck. You don't deserve to be stuck,
Mhm.
and
And
we
it,
don't.
and it's a perfect place for us to remind them about how to contact us.
Yes, yes.
What is it?
It is hello, hello. No, just one hello though. Hello at truthbetold.world. Hello at truthbetold.world.
And on that happy note, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us.